So this is a meditation on Mary. Now I'm not Catholic, right? The champions, the worldwide, the worldwide champion of the Mother of Mothers. The worldwide champion of the Mother of Mothers is the Catholic Church. Like it or lump it, never has there been a protector of motherhood like the Catholic Church. Never. Mothers and daughters, with the rare exception of Plotinus and Iamblichus, denominated as Neoplatonists. Yeah, this is a meditation upon Mary. I'm not Catholic. Yet. Right. I dare say. I mean, I'm kind of playing right now, so like, give me a break. I'm kind of playing. I'm playing. But lions play with their prey before they slay it. And we praise lions, and we praise serpents, and we praise the eagle. What's that old Catholic guy's name? Fulton Sheen, something. He told the right stories for the time he lived in, but now we have more information. We know that the eagle doesn't nudge its young out of the nest. He told a great story about it. That the eagle nudges its young out the nest and it falls, and then the eagle swoops up and saves its young to teach it how to fly. Now, back in that day, that metaphor worked. That metaphor don't work no more, because we know what eagles really do. Is when their two eggs hatch, they watch their young slay each other. And the mother keenly watches while one of her children kills the other one. And then, when one is dead, she praises that killer who she bore, knowing that that one must also kill. That's the epitome of the sympathy for the devil. And it is the antithesis to the empathy of the devil. That's why I stand outside at the very edge of the church. What is the very edge of the church? Well, what's the center of the church? What's the stone? And this is the thing that Protestants and Catholics must understand. There would be no Protestants without the Catholics. So you can go on and 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 on all day about the Lutheran heresy of the papacy. What about the pontificate? And what about the papacy? But what about the mamacy? Luther could have been within, but he went without. Per God's plan. It had to be. To build those buttresses. To build those flying buttresses. To make room for the courtyard. The temple. In open air, in full light. And at night, complete darkness. This is a meditation upon Mary. I come from outside the church. I'm the Protestants of Protestants. Luther was the Reformation to the Catholicism, to the world church. Luther reached outside like a, what do they call those big old fat things that come off the sun? Those big fat fire swirls that come off the sun, what do they call those? That's what Luther was. Luther reached out to here. And I'm right here, coming back. Full Mary double down! What's the problem with the Catholic Church? What's the problem with the world from the purview of the Catholic Church? The Catholic Church retracts in the world, or at least that's a common notion among the white people. The Koreans, the Vietnamese, the Hispanic. And the, well, some people call them Russians, I call them the Wild Rose. Mary's just barely coming to the surface. Barely, man. Barely. What is it? Hebrews 1:11. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things unseen. Evidence of things unseen. Jesus was without sin, but he was tempted. He didn't sway to temptation because he was without sin. For most scientific people, I've already lost you long ago, but there are some who exist within scientific, popular vernacular who are still here. And for you, I'd say, well, you've heard and you've contemplated and you've theorized over Schrodinger's cat. And Schrodinger's cat is one of the dumbest things ever, which was why Schrodinger made that analogy. It was supposed to present ridiculousness. It was supposed to be stupid in the first place. Yet then afterward, it's been taken seriously. Now there have been fruit from that serious consideration of this parody. That's how truth works. I've mentioned before, a very powerful symbolic meditation is like the marriage of Schrodinger's cat and Pavlov's dog. The symbolic, religious, philosophical, theological, moral, ethical, evolutionary, lived with contemplation over time. So consider for this one moment a marriage between Schrodinger's cat and Pavlov's dog. It's this impossible thing, yet and these are two symbols from science, but they're from far, their symbolism is different, their science is different, their meaning is different. Yet the contemplation between these two things is such a powerful schism. It just vibrates. There's no solution. Right? There's two sides of Schrodinger's cat. There's many sides. It was meant to be ridiculous. It was meant to say the cat's either dead or alive. It doesn't matter whether you put it in the box. We pretend like the box. It's exactly like when, the whole Descartes, I think, therefore I am thing. We're putting the cart before the horse. We're putting the box before the cat. We're pretending like the box is the primary unit. The box is a box. A cat is a cat. Which is. And which is just there. A meditation upon Mary. So, we call ourselves rationalists. We call ourselves scientists. Not to mention, including me, when we talk about Schrodinger's cat, we don't know what we're talking about. When we talk about Einstein, we don't know what we're talking about. When we talk about Darwin, we don't know what we're talking about. When we talk about Francis Bacon, when we talk about Richard Dawkins, when we talk about Hawkins, we don't know what we're talking about. Do we know all of it a little bit? How fast do we come to the truth? By crunching these numbers. In what base system? In kilometers or miles? In decimals, or was it duodecimals? Base 10, base 12, base 5, base 60, base 20. Meditation upon Mary. Jesus never sinned but he was tempted. From space and time, we peer upon God. From where God resides. God hovered above the deep. God hovered above the deep. And when God hovered above the deep, there wasn't anything else. One could say God came from the deep, but God is as of the deep. When God created everything, the deep was already there. The realm of undifferentiated soul. God was that first differentiation. And as soon as God realized God was what we call God, as soon as that first soul, these days it's out of, it's not part of popular, certainly among the so-called intelligentsia, which in reality is an extremely short list, though the false intelligentsia parades. Alright, I got off the point, but right, this is a meditation upon Mary. I don't know how it'll go. I got it in this ball chart. This is actually going to be pretty sweet, because there's this, engraved or etched or what would it be called, molded glass, and it's got a nice little picture, got a little candle behind it, got this hand-drawn picture. We'll see if we can make it pretty. But I do want to get to this meditation upon Mary and this doubling down from outside the church. I described it last time about the other order. Yeah. The other order. Oh yeah, I also wanted to... Okay, I'll get to it next time. The other order. Alright, I gotta do two things at once. I'm gonna shake my whiteout pen. Light the candle. Yeah, so I come from outside the church. I come from outside the church. Luther came from inside the church, outside the church. Yeah, Luther came from inside the church, outside the church. Because he had to. Because the church was bullshit. It wasn't really. He harshed upon Julius II, as did, what was his name, Erasmus of Rotterdam. They were right to do so, but they didn't see what Julius II protected, which was the prophetic gem of Raphael's Disputation, which, prophets don't only write things down, and sometimes they actually write them plain as day, if you can tell who a prophet is. Raphael was a prophet. So let me give you 3 points of information that prove Raphael's prophecy. And it's so much better than fucking, what's his name? What's that fucker's name that everybody's into? Nostradamus. He's a false prophet, which actually is a great feat. I'll give him that. Raphael's the real deal. And he spelled it out clear as day. And he just hit it in a lot of detail. Where's Waldo? It looks chaotic, but there's a point. Yeah, same with Raphael. Raphael, Saint Raphael, the healer. Well, we're going to heal the world when we give a really simple prophecy of Raphael. In Raphael's, pretty much his first famous papal apartment painting, even though we associate it these days with the quote-unquote School of Athens, which is what we call it now. On the other wall of this first papal apartment is what's called the Disputation. Raphael's Disputation, where there is a mushroom cloud, and then there's an arch of swastikas, which are concealed barely. Like, rationally speaking, they're not concealed at all. It's right there. No one can see it because there's so much going on. But you have a mushroom cloud, and people are like, oh, it's not a mushroom cloud, and even though it's like a perfect little ring upon a spire of cloud. Mushroom cloud, nuclear bomb, World War II. And then you have, and what nation in the world is most associated with the most flags and symbols of its own symbol ever? The Nazis. And above this mushroom cloud, World War II, there's an arch of swastika after swastika after swastika after swastika after swastika after swastika. I mean, the entire thing. 182 degrees of swastika. And what's at the very top? A red dot with a white circle, Queen Anne's lace. Queen Anne's lace dates back to approximately 10,000 BC Turkey. It exists today here in New Hampshire of America, United States, like right out in my own driveway beside the road, down the road, in the field along the way, by the train tracks over there, up on the interstate, around the corners, on every drive off, everywhere around the fucking world, from 10,000 approximately BC in Turkey. Meditation upon Mary. I exist outside the church. Luther came from in and pushed without. I'm at the limit where he pushed to, and now I'm coming back in. So what's the failure of the Catholic Church? Well, what's the failure of the Protestant Church? The denial of Mary. The denial of Mary. What's the problem within the Catholic Church? Not enough of Mary. And thank you for keeping and being her. But now at the outside, not among the pure, but among the decrepit. I'm the decrepit reaching back. I'm the lost, reaching back to Mother, the perfect Mother. I'm reaching from where I am now, where all mothers that I know are, still imperfect, back to the perfect one, Mary. It's a philosophical and a theological theology and the sacraments. It comes down to the story, the moral of the story. There's the logic and there's the moral of the story. It's where those things meet. It's where the mystery meets the matter, meets the magic, meets the mother. For instance, the logic of the story, right? So this is one of those things that isn't looked upon, but when we look upon the ridiculousness of religion, right? And there's a lot of ridiculousness to it. And when we look upon the ridiculousness of the so-called ethics of science, like there's a lot of ridiculousness to it. But what we know biologically, and we know a lot more than I know, I barely know anything, but I know this much. I know that I know that half of me is the egg of my mother, and I know my mother was born with many eggs. 2 of them came to be in this world. My mother was born with what? Billions, trillions, millions of eggs? Thousands. Well, menopause came anyway, so. what would it be, like 13 more minus 45, so like 45 minus 13, so like 32 times 12, so like kind of 30 times 10 plus a bit. 30 times 10 would be like 300, so like 400 eggs. 2 out of 400 eggs, so 1 out of 200 eggs, so like 0.5%. But half of me was born in my grandmother. Half of me was born in my grandmother. My grandmother was made inside my great-grandmother. Now, when we're talking about the Marys, and we're talking about Saint Anne, man, I gotta call up on something for this, because I'm feeling weak, but I gotta get... I gotta get this out. I gotta get it out. It's like I'm constipated with this thought. I just gotta get it out there. If we just look at the canonical Mary, that's one thing, right? But but Saint Anne is canonized, right? That's the thing that's awesome about the Catholic Church, is because they canonized the Bible. But then there are also canonized saints, like Saint Anne, like Saint Agnes, that aren't in the Bible. And it's what's really great about a lot of prominent Catholics today, who are preaching about, like Saint Maximus. So Roman Catholics preaching about Saint Maximus today, right? Unification. That's a big deal. But unification doesn't only go all the way down to the fucking bone. It goes to the marrow. And it doesn't only go to the marrow. It goes to the womb. It goes to the heart and the mind. A meditation upon Mary. Jesus never sinned, but Jesus was tempted. So what's the way that God looks upon Mary? God was tempted as Jesus. Mary was never tempted. Mary only ever obeyed. Obeisance. Ever. We all pray to God. In our loneliness, we are all born and we all die alone with the God of gods. So from here, we look to God. And we pray for heaven. Though we don't realize that the heaven we pray for is the omega point that only we as God's creation can build. That's why God created us. To build the omega point with Him. H-Y-M apostrophe N. A meditation on Mary. Mary was never so much as tempted. Jesus never sinned. Neither did Mary, nor was she tempted. The church proclaims Mary. The Protestant church holds her down. Luther was born from the church and created the Protestant church. I am born of the Protestant church, and I birthed the Protestamonial church. Double down on Mary. From else, and it's just a message. Okay, I'm being a little heavy about it. I'm being a little heavy-handed about it. So we can relax about it, but I'm deadly serious. What we are watching die in the world today, it's very ugly, and it's going to get uglier. But the world is doing everything to kill the sacredness of motherhood. Motherhood is the door between eternity and life. Motherhood. Period. End of story. Motherhood. The womb. The womb is the portal between eternity and life. Heaven exists within eternity. Eternity is a fucking ugly place, man. It's the wars in heavens. We do not war against flesh and blood. We war against principalities. What are principalities? Principalities are dynamic, quote-unquote, platonic forms. They're not static. They're dynamic. The eternal ones are dynamic forms that last from the Alpha to the Omega, which is an infinite form. There is not yet a sufficient philosophical nor mathematical form that speaks to that truth. That's what we are fighting for. I am not I was born of the protest. And I have come to the limit. And I'm pushing back. It's simple as that. When you say it, and it's true. We're not coming to a compromise on Mary. No, no, no. We're doubling down. We're doubling down on Mary. Jesus never sinned. Mary was never even tempted. And for you scientists who think I'm just speaking shit, you spend time thinking about Schrodinger's cat in a box? You put the box first and the cat second? And Pavlov's dog third.